So, Frederick Taylor said that there must be one best way. I am repeating myself, there must be one best way of doing anything. Even if you want to pick up a glass of water, there must be one best way of doing things. There must be one best way of picking up that glass either by your right hand or maybe by your left hand. But how will you figure out what is the one best way of doing things in an industrial environment? That is where Frederick W. Taylor said that it is the job of the industrial engineer. It is actually the job of the manager to understand that if I have to lift a load from place A to place B, then what is the speed at which the person should walk? Because think about it, if the person walks very fast, then the person might get very tired, because these are all repetitive work and you need to do it probably continuously for 4 or 5 hours. So, I do not want that person to be getting very tired. On the other hand, if the person walks very slowly, then there might be reduction in efficiency, there might be a dramatic fall in productivity. So, Taylor actually would go to the factory shop floor and he would sit with a stopwatch and he would start doing experiments. He would ask people to lift different weights and keep on walking from place A to place B, and based on all his results he would come and say that if you are supposed to lift a load of 5 kilos, then this is the speed at which you need to walk, provided you are planning to walk for 4 hours or 5 hours, because that is what the job demanded. Now, in more ways than one, Frederick Taylor was probably the first engineer in the industrial setup or the industrial engineer. He introduced this notion of scientific analysis, more like an empirical analysis. You conduct experiments, you look at your results, you measure it, and then you decide what is the one best way of doing things. Please keep in mind, unless and until the work is repetitive, you will never be able to figure out what is the one best way of doing those things. And then Taylor said that it is the task of the manager to lay down these as rules and regulations, so that when the worker comes in, he or she does not need to decide what is the best way of doing the job, how am I supposed to do this. Also keep in mind that we are talking of an industrial setup in very early 1900s. So, you can expect that the worker was probably not a very educated, knowledgeable person. To some extent we would call them unskilled labor or semi-skilled labor. So, Taylor figured out that it was not always possible for them to understand the entire industrial engineering process, and hence it was the onus of the manager, the designer, to lay down these rules. In a very fundamental way, what Taylor was trying to do was he was separating the thinking part from the doing part. He was saying that in an organization there are certain doers who would follow rules, and there are certain thinkers who would actually lay down those rules. And what exactly are those rules? Those rules are the best way of doing things. Now, if you think of a modern organization, you will actually find that there are a lot of rules and regulations that we lay down. We actually lay down processes, and all of these owe its origin to Frederick Taylor. All of these are making an assumption that indeed we have figured out what is the best way of doing it. Let me give you an example. When you walk into a bank and probably want to buy a product, say you want to buy an insurance product from a bank, what are the processes that the bank should follow? They can give you a form, or they can actually ask you to enter all your details online. Then obviously they will come and verify your credentials. There must be another department who will try to make an assessment of how much money that can be given to you. All of these can be done in very different ways. But when you are a banker, or when you are looking at designing the whole system, you will ask yourself, what is the best way of doing things? How can I do this so that it is minimum effort on the part of the customer, and yet at the same time I should not be getting a customer who will be unable to pay the insurance premiums, who is a deserving candidate maybe to get some kind of credit. And in many of these places we will actually do the kind of studies which Taylor used to do in the industrial setup. In the industrial setup we would call them time and motion studies. In today's context, we might call it business process reengineering or simply just looking at the processes. But when you look at a modern organization, you will find large number of processes that are being laid down, and the larger the organization is or more it is regulated, more are the processes that you will find there.